Hello everyone, this is Andrew from Crown Academy of English. Today's lesson we're going to look at the verb have, has, had. So, the verb have is an irregular verb. The present form is I have, you have, he, she or it has. We pronounce this has. We have, you have, they have. So this is where has comes from. It is the third person singular of the verb have in the present form. Okay, so this is the present tense. The past form is had. So for example, I had a headache. Okay, in the past, yesterday. And the past participle is also had. And we'll look at where we use the past participle later in this lesson. Okay? Now, there are two uses of the verb have. Number one, we can use have as a main verb. So, an example, I have a pen. So this is the main verb. We have the subject, we have the main verb, which is have, and here we have an object, pen. However, we can use number two, we also use the verb have as an auxiliary verb. So an auxiliary verb is a helping verb. And a helping verb helps us to form another verb tense. So for example, have is used to form the present perfect. I have cleaned the car. So the present perfect has the verb have as an auxiliary verb followed by the past participle of the main verb. So the main verb here is clean. So the past participle is cleaned. I have cleaned the car. We'll look at this at the end of the lesson. Okay, so we'll look at main verbs now, and after we will look at have as an auxiliary verb in more detail. So keep watching. So, have as a main verb. There are many meanings of have as a main verb. So let's look at each one. There are six different meanings of the verb have when it is a main verb. So number one, it means to possess something or to own something. Mark has a smartphone. So this means that Mark possesses a smartphone. Notice we have has. So why? Well, it is because this is the third person singular. Mark has a smartphone. I have a bicycle. So here we have, and this is the present tense, and this is the first person singular. We have 3 cats. We have 3 cats. So we own 3 cats. We possess 3 cats. Okay? Meaning number 2. The expression to have an illness means to be ill. Or to have an illness means to suffer from an illness. And we use the verb have to express this. The patient has cancer. I had measles when I was a baby. So we see that here we have an example of the past simple form. Remember at the beginning of the lesson I said the past form of have is had. So this is the past tense. When I was a baby, I had, followed by the name of an illness, measles. Jane has a cold. Jane has a cold. So this is the present tense, third person singular. Has. Okay, so have followed by the name of an illness. Number 3. To do or perform an action. Yesterday, he had a swim. He had a swim. I'm dirty. I'm going to have a shower. So we say have a shower or have a bath. Okay? Mark is having a rest. Mark is having a rest. This time we are using the present continuous. Is having a rest. So this is describing something that is happening right now. Currently, Mark is having a rest. So it's performing an action. Number 4. To eat or drink something. So to have something means to eat something or drink something. She's having a bowl of cereal. She's having a bowl of cereal. So this means she's eating a bowl of cereal. And again, we are using the present continuous because it's describing something that is happening now. Let's have a cup of coffee. Let's have a cup of coffee. So this means let's drink a cup of coffee. I had a glass of wine with the meal. I had a glass of wine with the meal. So this means I drank a glass of wine with the meal. This is an example of the past simple form. So we're describing something that happened in the past, maybe yesterday. Okay, so have, eat or drink something. Number 5. To experience something. We are having a great weekend in London. We are having a great weekend in London. So we are experiencing a great weekend. Okay. Sorry I'm late. I had a problem with my car. Okay, so we have the expression to have a problem, which means to experience a problem. And here we are using the past form. My parents had a good time in New York. So we have the expression to have a good time, to experience a good time. And here again we are using the past form. So it's my parents are the subject. So this is the third person plural past form. My parents had a good time in New York. And number 6. This is a very, very good one. To be having a baby. To be having a baby. So this means to be pregnant. To be pregnant. So here is a lady who is pregnant. And it's Jane. And she says, I'm having a baby. I'm having a baby. So this means I am pregnant. I am pregnant. Okay? Slightly different expression, but very similar. To have a baby. To have a baby. Now this means to give birth. Okay? So to be having a baby means to be pregnant. But to have a baby, this is the action of giving birth. So when you're in the hospital and the baby arrives. So here we are. Jane had a baby girl yesterday. Jane had a baby girl yesterday. Okay, so we could say Jane had a baby boy yesterday. So this means Jane gave birth to a baby girl yesterday. To have a baby. So it's a very nice expression, this one. Okay, so that was the main verb. That was have as a main verb. And as you saw, there were 6 meanings. There are even more, but those were the most common. Now we will look in more detail at have as an auxiliary verb. So we use have as an auxiliary verb to form other verb tenses. And in this lesson we will look at the present perfect and the past perfect, because those are the most common examples. So we use have in the present perfect. The form is subject followed by have in the present simple. So this is have in the present simple form, followed by the past participle of the main verb. Example. So as I said, we use have as the auxiliary verb in the present simple. So remember, we saw that at the beginning of the lesson. I have, you have, he, she, or it has. Remember, we have, you have, they have. And it's followed by the past participle of the main verb. And here the main verb is clean. So the past participle of clean is cleaned. So this never changes. This is the same for all of the subjects. I have cleaned, you have cleaned, he, she, it has cleaned, we have cleaned, you have cleaned, they have cleaned. So the whole thing, this is the present perfect, and it has 2 parts. There are 2 verbs in the present perfect. There is have, which is the auxiliary verb, and then there is the main verb in the past participle form. Okay? And now let's look at the past perfect. So we use have as an auxiliary verb to form other verb tenses. And now we will look at the example of the past perfect. So this time we have the subject, but it's followed by the past form of have. The past form of have. And remember, from the beginning of the lesson, the past form of have is had. And it never changes. That is the same for all of the subjects. And then the past perfect has another part, which is the past participle of the main verb. So here is the example. So we have as the auxiliary verb, and it is the past form. And this is the same for all subjects. I had, you had, he, she, or it had, we had, you had, they had. Followed by the past participle of the main verb. So the main verb is clean, and the past participle is cleaned. So I had cleaned the car, you had cleaned the car, etc. Okay? So again, the whole thing, the past perfect, is made up of 2 parts, 2 verbs. The verb have in the past form as the auxiliary verb, and then the main verb in the past participle form. And together it makes the past perfect. Okay? Now, this is the part that confuses people. This is why the verb have confuses people, because sometimes the verb have is used as an auxiliary and a main verb in the same sentence. Okay? An example of this is when we want to use the present perfect form of the verb have. So just think about that a minute. Just think in your head. We want to say the present perfect form of the verb have. So we want to have the verb have as the main verb in the present perfect form. So remember, present perfect is the subject followed by have in the present simple, followed by the past participle of the main verb. So if we want the present perfect of have, then there will be have here, and there will also be the past participle of have here, which is had. So this is what we have. I have had a cup of coffee. You have had a cup of coffee. So this is the present perfect of have. We have I have is the auxiliary verb, and had is the past participle of have. So this confuses a lot of students. A lot of students see this and don't understand. But if you think about it logically, it makes total sense. Okay? I have had a cup of coffee. You have had a cup of coffee. He, she, or it has had a cup of coffee. Because remember, this is the present simple form of have. And in the third person singular, it's has. So when would we use this? What is an example? Well, if someone asks us, why are you not tired? We can answer, because I have had a cup of coffee. I have had a cup of coffee. Okay? And if you don't understand the meaning of the present perfect, then I have another video about the present perfect. So I'll give you the link at the end of this lesson. Okay? But this is correct. This is not a mistake. This is very good, perfect English. Okay? I have had. And now let's look at the same example, but with the past perfect. So let's look at the past perfect form of have. So we have the subject followed by had. So this is the verb have as the auxiliary verb. And the past perfect is the past form of have, which is had, followed by the past participle of the main verb. So here we have it. And this often confuses students because we have the same word twice. I had had a cup of coffee. You had had a cup of coffee. And students often think this is wrong. But it's not. This is correct. This is the past perfect form of the verb have. So we have the auxiliary verb and then the main verb, the past participle of have. So this is the past participle of have, and this is the past form of have. It's the same word, but it's a different part of speech. Okay, sorry, it's a different form. Okay? So it's the same for all of the subjects. You had had a cup of coffee. They had had a cup of coffee. So when would we use this? What does this mean? Well, if someone asks us, why couldn't you sleep last night? So the question is referring to the past. Why couldn't you sleep yesterday or last night? And we answer, because I had had a cup of coffee before going to bed. Okay, so before I went to bed in the past, there was another action in the past before it, which was having a cup of coffee. So relative to the past, this is before. So I had had a cup of coffee before going to bed. And this is perfectly good English. Okay, this is very good English, in fact. So this is often a cause of confusion. So this is the explanation for that. Okay? So there we are. That's the end of the lesson. Hope you enjoyed it. And here are the other videos which I think will help you understand the present perfect and the past perfect. Okay.